We are now going to talk about insecure deserialization. And this is another topic where we've had to do a little bit of contrived code. And because Rails does do a great job, I know that I'm singing the praises of Rails over and over, but it is important to understand how much work has gone into some of these frameworks and libraries in order to make them secure. So our example, it actually starts again at the controller. And you'll see that what we're saying is, what if we are fetching some content and we are using it not from the user, but from a perhaps user supplied file that we got before. And so we're actually using our backend, our models, to get the code from a file. And we can see what that looks like. And this is, imagine if like there's a config file that we are letting the user upload or something like that, and what that would look like. So here's the method we added. It's YAML. So we're loading a YAML file from this content.yml in our lib, and then we're grabbing the content key. And so let's see what any of that stuff might look like. We are going to look at the lib. So you see in content we have this ERB, eRuby expression, and it's actually trying to output the AWS region. So that's something somebody might want as part of their web page, or they might be trying to build something dynamic, so they might want something like this. So we are now in a position where we are letting a user evaluate YAML. So we're letting a user evaluate their particular code that they've contributed to us without really doing much inspection on it. So see, we're loading it directly. And so what we want to do here is now go over to the view and see how that is being handled. And it's actually pretty simple. If you look at, it's just if there's content, render content. Okay, so what does that look like out on the web? So it shows this, right? But what if we actually were not careful and we looked at a different variable than we thought? I think this is the one that I set up. So here's a different one that we could potentially access it. And we need to be careful about this kind of stuff, because if the user submits it and they suddenly change their input without us being aware of it, what would happen is something like this. And that's something we don't want. So the way that we are going to remedy this is actually by not allowing this to happen. So we're not going to allow the direct evaluation of it. And so the way that that will look, you'll see that it's working away at the new version. Syntax error. See? So it will display that instead. And so what this shows us is that if we don't allow the value to be rendered, we are not going to have a problem with exposure. And how do we allow the users to actually do what they were doing previously, where they're evaluating code on our servers? So we would have to be more careful with inspecting the YAML file. So we would have to build more analysis and not do a direct load, but perhaps do something like actually scan it and see if it includes something like secret. And if it does, then if it does, and then we say no thanks. And it's just one of the examples of blacklisting and whitelisting that we've talked about. But essentially, we're just trying to stay a little more secure if we can against content being directly deserialized into our application.